Good day, everyone. I have Stu here from Flex and looking very forward and excited to go through what I've asked him for is basically just a really kind of Cole's Notes version of exactly what's going on over the next week because we do have some launches happening, some people that are existing holders of some of the funds, and then a new launch of tokens happening on the 11th. So I want Stu to kind of go through everything with us and give us kind of the lowdown and let us have some opportunities. And then just so you guys are aware, right in advance, on the 11th, it looks like I'm going to go live probably just before the launch, which is 11, Stu?
11
Eastern?
a.m. Eastern, yeah.
Okay. So at 11 Eastern, I'm going to go live and I'm going to do like just beforehand, maybe 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. And then Stu will come and join me afterwards for a Q&A so that anybody can ask questions. But that'll give everybody time to hopefully get their funds in because there is a timing aspect to this, which Stu will go into in a moment. So hi, Stu. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. This is the first time I've actually been on your show, so
Yeah,
really
I'm surprised we
excited.
took this long, but
I
welcome.
know.
We
I know.
talk
I
about
know that
things often, but then never made it happen, I guess.
I know. I
Yeah.
know we've been talking a lot, and you covered Flex way back,
Mhm.
in the middle of last year when we first kind of introduced the project. So it's good to have the opportunity now to jump in and speak to your community and let them know, about the exciting developments that have happened over the course of the last, 6 months,
Mhm.
and because it's the final hurdle now before we go live. So we're going to be launching the platform for live trading on the 18th of February. And obviously before that, we've got this FLP surge, which we'll talk about during this video as well. So
Awesome.
great to be here. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have along the way, Justin.
Yep.
But I'm happy just to maybe give a quick overview again of what Flex Perpetuals is for those that maybe didn't see your initial videos or haven't been keeping track, and then we can go into some more detail as to what's happening, the exciting stuff that's happening over the next couple of weeks. Does that sound okay?
Sounds brilliant, sir.
Great. So,
So,
Flex Perpetuals is, as the name suggests, funnily enough, a perpetuals exchange. We are launching on Base Chain. So, really exciting chain, really exciting project. We've been developing now since April of 2024.
yep.
And as we've just mentioned, we're at the final stages of development and ready to launch the platform on the 18th of February. So Flex Perpetuals is going to give you the opportunity to trade with leverage and on perpetuals contracts, just like you can do on a centralized exchange or on other decentralized perp dexes, with high leverage, um, remain retaining custody of your assets, no KYC, so fully decentralized. And over time, the assets that you'll be able to trade will range from, the top cryptos to more exotic cryptocurrencies, to commodities, to foreign exchange. So there'll be a whole suite of different assets that you can trade with leverage. Um, and our goal is to provide a platform that has execution that's on par with a centralized exchange, but doing that in an environment that's decentralized, where you retain custody and you don't have the KYC concerns that you might have with certain centralized exchanges. So, as a trading platform, we're going to be priding ourselves on low fees. So, for example, BTC and ETH will be a flat 0.02% fee to trade, which is comparable to what you would find on the biggest exchanges out there, along with gasless order execution. So, in DeFi, you don't want to have to manually sign for every transaction when you're placing trades, particularly if you're a shorter time frame trader. Execution is going to be really important. So by having that gasless feature, you don't have to worry about signing for each individual trade that you make, and we use account abstraction and intent-based technology to allow that to happen. You'll have
Nice.
cross margin facility, so that allows for flexibility in how you manage your margin on the trading platform. But you can also, if you want to isolate your margin, which some people do, depending on their trading strategy, you can use sub accounts to be able to kind of achieve that. So it's very easy to move your collateral from one sub account to another, so that you can long in one account, short in another account if you want to, be partially hedged or fully hedged. You can isolate your margin. So if you're using a kind of a DCA type strategy, you're able to manage those different trades independently, and they're not commingled into one single trade with one set of margin that's backing it. And then there's multi-asset collateral. So you can deposit USDC or wrap Bitcoin or ETH as your collateral asset, which again, there's benefits there depending on your trading strategy. You can use it to as like a carry trade, or you can potentially offset some risk when you're hedging as well. So there's loads of kind of advanced features there for traders. And we'll be building out the suite of tools that are available for traders as well as the project develops. And then on the flip side of that, you've got investors. So those who perhaps are investing in the native token, or those who are providing liquidity, because the way that this platform works is instead of having a market maker like a traditional order book would have with on a centralized exchange where they use external market makers to make that market, we have an internal automated market maker that uses what we call our FLP, which is our Flex Liquidity Pool. So investors like you or I or anyone, from someone that's got $10 to institutional size investors, can provide liquidity in the FLP and make markets essentially for Flex Perpetuals. So they will be the counterparty to the leverage traders on the platform, and in return get a really nice share of platform revenue, which is essentially the fees that the traders pay to trade on the platform. So that's, I guess, a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what Flex is. There's opportunities for traders to use the platform and to benefit from incentives like trade to earn airdrops. And then there's benefits for more passive investors who want to, be liquidity providers in the platform itself.
Nice. So a little bit for everything, a little bit for
Yeah.
everyone. And one little side note that just came on me, and sometimes I go on tangents. Theoretically, then, and I guess I've never really thought about using decentralized exchanges for this, but if somebody does need to move certain amounts of funds around, and they can't, and the bridges are expensive, all this kind of stuff, they could technically do that with on the ETH side of things. Like if I need to get ETH moved around from ETH, moving it to this DEX, just like I would with a centralized exchange, would be the same benefit, I guess, when it comes to less fees and stuff.
So it's when you're trading perps on a platform like ours, there's no actual ownership of the asset because you are trading with leverage.
Mhm.
So we use the data from Chainlink and Pith oracles to essentially price the assets that are available on the platform. So you
Yeah.
don't take ownership. If you trade ETH long, for example, you don't actually take ownership of that ETH.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's it's
Yeah, that's
it's like
normal. Yeah,
accounting, if you like. Yeah.
perfect. So other than that, I guess if we lead into, I guess, FLP now, with that launching very soon, what's the benefits to people? Because, and I get this one excites me a little bit more. I'm a trader on futures and stuff like that, but I definitely have no desire to be trading. Uh, I just I've tried trading crypto, and I just find it way too stressful, the way things move on there. So for me, and I think most of my community and stuff, the ideas of what you guys are going to do for the investor side of things, I think, is what's kind of cool. And for a lot of us, we may not have ever gotten involved in the launch of a DEX and benefited from things like when the HMX token launched and all that stuff. So that's what I'd really like to get out of this, obviously. Did you want me to pull up the share screen now?
Yeah, if you want to pull up share screen, we can kind of do a bit of a dive in on the FLP and the FLP surge
Nice.
itself. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the FLP surge is a special liquidity drive, if you like, to bootstrap our liquidity for ahead of platform launch on the 18th of February. So the Flex liquidity pool is the counterparty to leverage traders on the platform. So if you've got $1,000 and you want to trade with 10x leverage, so therefore sort of $10,000, you're essentially borrowing those assets from the FLP to allow you to do that. And if you lose that trade, then the FLP benefits from that loss. If you win the trade, then the FLP pays out essentially. So by being in the FLP, you are essentially the bank. You're acting as the market maker, and you earn fees. So 45% of the platform's revenue is paid as yield to stakers in FLP. And the FLP token itself, so when you if you take part in the surge, or even if you supply liquidity after the surge, you can deposit USDC, you can deposit wrapped Bitcoin, you can deposit ETH, and the token itself is like an index token. So it's made up of 40% USDC, 40% wrapped Bitcoin, and 20% ETH. So as a liquidity provider, you've got exposure to these three different assets. So the hope is obviously long term, and particularly in a bull market, that the price of BTC and ETH is, there's going to be volatile swings, but in general going to be moving in the right direction. So you can benefit from some price appreciation there. So it's like having a little diversified portfolio just by having the FLP token. And if you're familiar with HMX or Jupiter and Solana, they've got similar pools, the JLP or the HLP, that work in a similar way. So you deposit, you get the FLP token. That FLP token is made up of USDC, BTC, and ETH at the target ratios that I've mentioned, 40, 40, 20. And this offers, it maximizes the potential return while also being aware of volatility and risk in the individual market. So it kind of smooths out the volatility that you would experience if you were just holding ETH or if you were just holding BTC. And then because you're the counterparty to leverage traders, we've got several protection mechanisms in place to ensure that your assets are safe. So yeah, it's susceptible to the wins and losses of traders, but we've got protection mechanisms in place to ensure that there is no catastrophic losses. If a trader was to get really lucky and put a 100x leverage trade on and get it just right, then there are protection mechanisms in place to ensure that that isn't going to have an overly negative impact on the liquidity pool itself. So in terms of benefits for the liquidity providers, the first thing is you're earning real yield here. Predominantly, you're earning real yield. So for every trade that a trader places on the platform, they pay fees. They pay the opening and closing fee plus a borrowing fee for using leverage. And those fees add up, when you've got millions and millions of volume going through the platform each and every single day. And so what we do, which is different to what you would get on a centralized exchange, for example, and because it's users like you and I who are providing liquidity, we share that revenue with the liquidity providers. So 45% of the revenue that the platform makes is distributed to liquidity providers in the form of USDC. And then over and above that, you also get incentive rewards, which are paid in our native token, which is ESFDX in this case. And so what you can see on the screen here, and I'll zoom in just a little bit so that it's clearer, is that, and these are just estimates. So until we're up and running and we've got volume coming through, it's difficult to give specific APRs it's real yield. So we can't say, oh, you guarantee you 0.2% per day or anything like that. But what we can say is that if we get certain amounts of volume on the platform and we have certain amount of TVL in the pools, then we can estimate what that might look like in terms of a return. So, at 100 million in weekly volume, we are estimating that the USDC part, so the real yield part of the yield, will be about 24% APR. And then when you include the native token rewards, that goes up to about 44%. Once we start to scale up in volume, because the more volume, the more fees that we earn. So 250 million, might be near 60% for the USDC side of things, and then 80% combined. And then at 500 million in volume, that might be closer to 120% APR and 140% when you include the native tokens. So when you consider that you're holding an asset that is made up of these crypto blue chips, the USDC, the BTC, and the ETH, and that you can sit there and passively, and you don't have to, it's not like a concentrated liquidity pool that you've got to manage your ranges or anything like that. You basically just sit back and earn yield. It's about as passive as you can get. And then potentially, earning APRs anywhere from 30 to, perhaps even 200% at the top end, I think is a really, attractive risk reward opportunity for liquidity providers.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. And again, like I like how, and it makes sense, obviously, as you scale, the amounts can grow quite nicely for people. So if you guys do catch on and people start migrating to the thing, it's just going to expedite how much we can all earn over time that much quicker. So
Yeah.
some loyalty hopefully out there coming your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we're going to be really going heavy on the marketing side of things. Once we launch to attract trading volume, we've also got some really attractive trade to earn incentives. So essentially, you as a trader, you'll earn points, and the more points you earn, the bigger your incentive, the airdrops that you get. And this is a model that has worked for perpetuals exchanges very, very well. But we're kind of we're doing something slightly innovative, where we're doing what we call dynamic emissions for the trade credits. So most protocols that we've seen in the past just have a spreadsheet that says, on this month we're going to give out this much rewards, and it's kind of pre-programmed in. And that's all very well, but what we're going to be doing is basing those incentives on volume. So the more volume that comes through the platform, the bigger those rewards are going to get. And if the volume drops, we're going to reduce those rewards, because ultimately, we want to protect our native token. And if we just give out too many emissions, then that's going to have long term, that's going to have a negative effect on the underlying token. So this is a way
Absolutely.
that we can incentivize traders, but at the same time mitigate any or some of the risk for token holders.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and even if your rewards go down, if you're just sustaining a price, then you're at least not depleting your overall book value, I guess, if you will.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome.
And so feel free to interrupt if you get any questions, but that there is the FLP, just kind of plain vanilla FLP. And this is what anyone who gets involved in FLP, regardless of when you get involved, can expect. The big thing that we're kind of, and part of the reason for this call today and the live session that we're going to be doing next week, is specifically about the FLP surge.
Okay.
So it's important for us to start off with a good base of liquidity, so that traders are able to trade with adequate amounts of volume. And so to try and incentivize that, what we're doing is what we call the FLP surge. So this is a 5-day event that starts on the 11th of February at 4 p.m. UTC or 11 a.m. Eastern. And we'll finish on Sunday the 16th, again at 4 p.m. UTC or 11 a.m. Eastern time. And this gives you, there's some really attractive benefits to getting involved in the FLP surge over just waiting and depositing into FLP once the platform is up and running.
Yep.
And the way that we're doing this is on a tier-based system. So it really is at your advantage to get in as early as you possibly can. There's going to be juicy rewards regardless of when you get in, but the earlier you get in, the better those rewards are. And the way it works is on a tier-based system, which is dollar-based. So the first $500,000 that's deposited once the FLP surge opens, they will share 70,000 of our native token, ESFDX, in rewards over the course of a year. So that's going to be airdropped to you monthly for 1 year, provided you keep your liquidity in the pool. Then, if you get onto the, once the first 500 is filled up, we move on to the next 500,000, which is going to be 60,000 that's shared amongst that next tier of depositors. And then it scales up so that you've got 750,000 as the next tier, and they're getting 50,000 in rewards. So you can see that the earlier that you participate, the bigger your share of rewards is going to be.
And
And
just to
just
be
to
clear,
kind
I
of
guess that's like
highlight,
an additional token that you're giving out, that has a different use case, correct?
yeah, so ESFDX is like an escrowed version of our main FDX native
Yeah.
token. And what the escrowed version basically means is this isn't the ESFDX, you can't go out and buy off the market. It can only be earned through
Yeah.
incentives and as a reward token. So it's not liquid. So the ESFDX that you get here, you've got two choices. You either stake it, which you can earn further rewards, USDC, more ESFDX, and something called flex points, or you can choose to vest it. And if you vest it, it will then gradually be converted to FDX, which can be sold on the market, and that happens over a period of 365 days. So if you vest 100 ESFDX, after 6 months, you'll have 50 FDX that you can sell on the market, and that happens on a block by block
Gotcha.
basis on the blockchain.
Cool.
So to kind of put some numbers against this, um, let's say you deposit $10,000 and you manage to get into tier one, then you would get your share of the 70,000 ESFDX. And what that equates to essentially would be about 116 ESFDX that you're getting paid out every month, which is, you know, at the time, at the launch price, ESFDX is going to be worth approximately $5. So over the course of a year, if we just use that as a ballpark figure just now, that could be potentially worth about $7,000 in ESFDX.
Yep.
So, you've got 70% of your $10,000 investment in just these bonus rewards, and that doesn't include all of what we discussed in this
Yeah.
table and slide here. So it can be a really good way to help speed up and recoup some of your initial investment. And at the same time, that initial $10,000 is going to be holding the FLP token, which, we hope over time is going to go up in value as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing to note is there's 1 month lock if you get involved in FLP surge. Generally speaking, if we exclude the surge, there's no lock period in FLP. You can deposit and withdraw at any time. But because we're giving out these huge bonuses, you're locked for that first month.
Perfect.
If you decide it's not for you and you want to exit or you need to get your money out for whatever reason, you can withdraw your liquidity after month one. But what will happen is you'll then forego your ability to receive the remaining ESFDX for the rest of the year. And what inevitably that is going to mean is some people will leave. That's inevitable. and everyone who stays will get a bigger share because their tokens will then be shared amongst whoever remains.
So 500K person needs to leave, and then I'll get a whole lot of tokens.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, we are incentivizing large deposits. So if anyone is looking to deposit between 50K or 100K plus, there are extra incentives. So for a 50,000 deposit, you would get an extra 5% in your ESFDX allocation. For 100,000 or more, you would get 15% extra. So there's some really juicy benefits for the larger investors that might be out there.
Nice. Yeah. If one of you are out there, come on by, but I am not one of those. So cool. I'm trying to think if I had anything else on that. I think everything looks good there. So yeah, let's move on and see what else we got.
Yeah, so I mean, just to reiterate that the ESFDX that you earn um, provide, you can create yourself a little flywheel, if you like, within the Flex ecosystem, because you can restake that to earn more yield, and then you can use that yield, to build up your positions in other areas of the platform itself. So it's not necessarily just a one and done thing. And you've got the USDC that you're earning as an FLP staker anyway, that you can either use to take for cash flow, or you can you could buy up FDX. You can use that USDC as you like. I think we've probably covered the main elements of FLP, and hopefully that's given people a bit more insight as to kind of what function FLP has in the ecosystem
Yep.
as the market making liquidity pool, how you can potentially benefit from it as an FLP staker and earning real yield on a blue chip index token, and the benefit of getting involved early in this surge event with those huge ESFDX incentives.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this. Just something bite sized for them to get their feet wet. And if you guys are interested in it at all, please obviously join the Telegram. The link will be down below. There is a Discord. It's not getting used that much. I keep telling Bill that I'll fix it up a little bit, but I've been a little swamped. But next week I'm hoping to try and fix it up for those that really don't like Telegram, because there are a few of them out there still. But for the latest and greatest information, the Telegram really is the important one to be in. And for that, so if you are interested, like I said, come on by the Telegram, ask any question you guys want. Please do in my Discord. Let me know if there's any specific questions you want me to get answered when we do the live on next week. But otherwise, if you want it earlier answers so you can get in the FLP, then the Discord's the place to get that information. So, and this is a nice little look of how the deck's going to look.
Yeah, this is it. So this is pretty much what you're going to see on our platform. There's going to be a few aesthetic changes that we haven't yet implemented, but this is kind of the main trading terminal. And then if you are getting involved in FLP Surge, for example, this is the page that you'll go to. You'll be able to see what the pool composition is like, and then you can choose, which of the assets that you want to deposit, and you simply just pop the amount in here, and that will be you. You'll deposit, and it'll show you what tier you're in and what your estimated earnings are going to be in ESFDX, and then also converted to dollar amounts based on the current price of the FDX token.
So this is where they're coming on the 11th.
Yeah, this is where you're going to want to go on the 11th. And then I'm going to be doing a whole host of kind of short how-to videos for the official YouTube channel, just on how to deposit into the surge, how to place trades, how to set stop losses and take partial profits and things like that as well. So we're going to be giving as much education as we can for traders and investors in the platform. And if anyone does want to kind of get into the weeds, we've got an extensive set of documentation, which is available at docs.flex.trade. You can go in here and you can learn literally everything that you need to know. This goes into huge amounts of detail, including all the mathematical formulas as to how risk is managed and things like that. So
Nice.
if you're that way inclined, the information is there for you. But yeah, as Justin has said there, Telegram at the moment is the best place to get in touch with us. You can tag me at crypto_stu22. I'm active in there on most days. If I'm not there, one of our admins will certainly be able to kind of help you. Follow us on X. We've actually given out about $40,000 of prizes and giveaways
That's great
since
too.
April this year. So even just hanging around in our Telegram can be quite profitable for folks.
Well, and it's a great way to help keep the word moving too and stuff. So that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else we wanted to get through before we shut this down?
I think that's it. I mean, for those that maybe got involved in our earlier raises, when we launch on the 18th, you'll be able to come in and you'll be able to claim your tokens and stake them at that point in time. And I'll be, we can maybe talk about that when we jump on live next week for
Sounds good.
the FLP surge itself, and I'll be doing videos on how to do all of that as well.
Okay. And the stuff that you did, the earlier stuff, I guess, just quickly, not that I went, but if we have that, is it going to show up in the website, or do we have to do anything?
Yeah. So this is, if I
Oh, there we go. Yes,
scroll
it's right
down
there. Yeah.
here, so this page handles the seed round, and you would be able to, you would see how many tokens you've got here to claim, and you would claim them here. The same with
Gotcha.
TGE, you would see your tokens here, and you would just come into this page and claim your tokens. It's easy
Perfect.
as that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for your time, sir. And that, oh, I guess we still share on screen. So thanks so much for that. As I said, guys, Telegram, X, as Stu mentioned. And then if you have anything else, please let me know. And as I said in my Discord, I'll open it up if you guys have any specific questions. Maybe you're not able to make it for the live, but you want to have those answers kind of verbally given to you, then give them to me in my Discord, and we'll make sure to ask Stu on the live. I'll probably be coming on the live on my own for the first few minutes and do my own live deposit. And then basically Stu will join me afterwards to answer any questions, just because obviously for the launch, he's going to need to be in the Telegram and stuff for that, and possibly with some other people to help them through the process. So hopefully we'll see him shortly after the 11 p.m. Eastern, and join me while I'm babbling away on the screen. So
11 a.m. Eastern.
a.m.
Just,
Yes, thank you. Did I say
yeah.
p.m.? All right. Thank you so much, guys, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and weekend. And we'll see you next week live with Stu again. Thanks, Stu.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.